Hi, and welcome to MentorCore. If you're new here, we're a community focused on helping people in the security, risk, and compliance fields grow their careers and leadership skills through mentoring. You can find more information about MentorCore at mentorcore.biz. I'm Dan Ayala, along with Lisa Beth Lentini Walker. Now, on to this week's discussion. Hi, everybody, it's Dan Ayala. Before we get started with this week's episode with Candace Towle, the part 2 of our discussion with her, I want to remind you that part 1 is available and is a good prerequisite listen before hearing this second part, where we talk to Candace about entrepreneurship in times of turmoil. If you want to find that, you can go to podcast.mentorcore.biz, or you can go to our YouTube channel and you can find the link to that as well at podcast.mentorcore.biz. Now, without further ado, here's episode 2. And yeah, making that turn and finding people, finding people to surround yourself with, how are you making the determination of who to reach out to in those times? How are you finding people? How do you build that network out so you have the people to go ask?
Oh, that's a great question, Dan. So I use every network I can think of. I'm involved in, which I wasn't back then. And at the time, I was a single mother. I'd been married for many years, got divorced, and I was raising my son. I could not get out to in-person networking events, or I would have had no time with my son. And so that was not an option for me for many, many years. But getting out to any kind of networking events, start anywhere, because the universe has a way of leading us places. Some would say that it's our brain giving us subliminal instruction to get out and meet other people. And those networks bring you to other networks, because people will say to you, have you thought about, joining this group or that group, the NACD, or it could be it could be SCCE. If you're not going to conferences, try and get yourself to a conference. If you're with an employer that won't send you to conferences, try to save money yourself and sponsor yourself to a conference. That's what I used to do many years ago, before companies actually sent people to conferences. They didn't always back in the past. And so I would take myself to events or go on the weekends to different kinds of groups that I could join. And so today online, there are many, many resources. It's very easy to attend online events like this, career compliance career connections, CCC, fantastic resource for anybody in the compliance field or security. All types of events that people can go out to. Ask friends and colleagues, what do you do for networking? What kind of professional networking do you do? We're all human beings, right? So you're going to gravitate towards the people that you resonate with at events, unless you really literally don't speak to a person. But try to have a goal of speaking to at least 10 people at an event. As a business owner, if I go to an event, I'm also trying to do some kind of sales development for the future. So I try to force myself, make sure I'm meeting 100 people at an event. That's difficult to do in 3 or 4 days. But have a goal in your mind before you go to a networking event. I'm going to speak to at least one person. If you can, research who are the people who are going, get in contact with them if you can, arrange to have a cup of coffee together. Most people will get together with you for a cup of coffee. There's no obligation there. And then try to keep that conversation focused on what you're trying to accomplish. Let the person know, I'd really like to sort of pick your brain about something. Or, I met you at a conference somewhere else. We didn't have a chance to connect on something. I'd love to get your feedback on an idea I have. So it could be for entrepreneurial reasons. I'm thinking of starting a business in XYZ. And I noticed that you do something that could tie into that. Or maybe you want to talk to a person who could be an advisor for your business. People like that.
Yeah, that genuineness is something I know that a lot of people struggle with. How do I be genuine and not walk up and to them and turn them off by the initial interaction because I just want, but not necessarily not taking the time to build the relationship. Something you said sparked a different question though around target conferences or groups to get in. I know a lot of people gravitate toward people like them, people in the
Mhm.
same field, people in the same industry. And while that is interesting, is there value in running into a more heterogeneous environment? Perhaps people not like you, not in the same industry, different levels in the organization, different types of organizations, different roles. How do you balance those out and not just at conferences, but when seeking out mentors?
That's also a really important question, Dan. Thanks for asking it. I think, yeah, so I mix and match the kind of organizations I'm involved in. I'm involved in some organizations outside of compliance, some that are C-suite, because that's my target audience for my business is C-suite people. But then I also mix and match that with other organizations. I'm a member of a trusted advisor network, as Jay is as well, Jay Rosen, who's also on this call. And that is really interesting because it just sort of bursts open. It's kind of like a pop of color of the different types of people. These are all trusted advisors, most of whom own their own businesses, many of whom are consultative. Half the membership are attorneys, so they're mostly in boutique law firms or slightly, regional, and some are national law firms. And so what that group, that networking group does is it brings a whole different perspective about business. And because we're all in different avenues of business, we learn a lot from one another. And I think to your point that that's really important because that perspective, I have, my business is consultative. Yes, we provide a product or a service that delivers specific kinds of results. But the reason that my clients come back to me time and time again for years, many, some of them over 20 years, is that they value my perspective on the issues that they're facing that have to do with what they hire us for.
Right.
And so they're buying from clients buy from us who we are as a human being, who, number one, who we are professionally, our expertise, such as it is, whatever that expertise might be, and our whole life experience that we're bringing to the table of that conversation, right? So it's the detail is in the conversations that we have together. Most of my clients at some point during the year are going to ask me, many of them frequently, what do you think we should do next? And it's the value of that, so yes, we provided this information, but what are you going to do with that information? That makes the difference. That's what cuts that client from coming, to be a repeat client, right? And so if I'm not networking, if I'm not getting refresh myself, whether that's educationally, academically in some cases, experience-wise, and also resources, who am I hearing from? What do I hear that's out there? What are the new techniques going on out in our fields, right? What should we be doing? What should we be looking for the future? If I don't have that refresh constantly from all of these other trusted advisors that I know, then my advice to clients would be much more linear. Right. Linear advice is helpful, but it's not enough, I don't think.
Well, it
I think
also
that's really
pairs. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go on.
I was saying, and it pairs with the idea of why people go to consultants in the first place, because consultants are also able to experience operationally our expertise areas across a lot of different organizations and bring the best of all that to our clients.
Yeah.
And so, but you're taking this and as well, talking about it in terms of the people element and being able to multidimensionalize that as well as an additional value add. It's really a neat way to think about it.
Yeah, and if you're not thinking about it like that, I would highly recommend that you think about how do you open out, how do you open out your own resourcefulness, right? Your own, because it stimulates your own creativity as well. when we talk to other people, we get an exchange of ideas, exchange of opinions, advice, understanding, but we also get to share not only experience, but trajectory into the future. What else could be done? How do you move things forward? I'm always looking at how are we going to progress things along? Because I think the future is where, yes, today is most important, right? You have to live in the moment. But in terms of, as a professional, what you're bringing to the picture is how is this project or thing that you're working on, how is that going to shape over time? And so if you're not looking at that, you're not really bringing perspective. You're only just functioning today, which if you're functioning today and you're doing your job well or brilliantly, fantastic. But driving it forward is really essential. And I just want to tie that into mentoring just for a moment, if
Please.
I can. So it's important to have strategic mentors or to be a mentor yourself and be strategic for people, with people that you're mentoring. And then it's important to have operational mentors as well, right? And then of course we all need supportive mentors, the people that we turn to who really support us, who really, whether that's emotionally or in any way, in any type of support structure that you can think of that you might need in your life. For some people, it might be a health mentor because they're not feeling well, something's going on in their lives, and they need that kind of support. And so that can be just as important and often is more important. Of course, if you haven't got your health, nothing else counts either. So, but think about having different kinds of mentors. So mentors help us to shape ourselves. They see things in us that we don't see in ourselves. And I was fortunate to have some mentorship over the years in my life and in business. But I've been a mentor to probably, at the very least, dozens and dozens and dozens of people, maybe hundreds of people. Some who've called me back 10, 15, even 20 years later to thank me for helping them at the time. And maybe at that time, I wasn't even thinking of myself as a mentor, just as a friend, a supportive friend or business acquaintance that helped them to look at themselves differently. When I went through difficulties in my business, I did turn to other people who became very supportive of me. And I actually had, at one time, had a bookkeeper who was a tremendous support to me, who totally understood what was going on because she understood the financial picture of the company. Mm-hmm. And she was able to help me think about things very differently. And so we can draw from all of these different channels. And so I would encourage everybody to find different types of mentors. If you don't have them, look for them.
So I love that we've started talking a little bit about mentoring. And I consider you to be just one of the most outstanding mentors. Every conversation I have with you, I come away with something that I needed to hear, I needed support in, etc. So I can't thank you enough for that. One of the things that you hear in business, though, is never let them see you sweat. And what I always really value about you, Candace, is you are a very strong person, but you are unafraid of showing vulnerability. What do you think about these people that you may run across in your life that just are so worried about letting a single point of vulnerability show? Are they is that part of a self-limiting behavior, or what's your advice in those situations where you're afraid to show people that, hey, you know what, my last client didn't pay for half of their billing because they just went under, and the business that I thought I had is suddenly not the way that I thought it was. How do you counsel and help people through that?
Well, that's a fabulous question, and it's quite an answer to, not that I have all the answers, I definitely don't. But I would say that thank you for your wonderful feedback as well. I really appreciate that from my heart. And I would say that there are just so many things that you can do when a person is afraid to reach out completely. Find other people outside of your business environments that you can reach out to. All right. I know that a lot of attorneys have difficulty asking any kind of question, any kind of outreach question. I know it's extremely difficult. The higher up in an organization, the harder it is also for people to reach out, because they don't want to be perceived as weak or vulnerable. I think there's tremendous strength in our vulnerability. If we think about the people that we most resonate with, that rapidly become public figures, all kinds of people, whether it's an Oprah or a Brene Brown or any person, or somebody in the past, Gandhi, for example, or anyone. We resonate with them because they show their vulnerability, but they also show how to improve your own inner strength, how you can create better resolve for yourself. Or you might be a person of high resolve already, but you're afraid to reach out. So be resourceful, be creative, go outside of your field, go outside of your sphere. Set up a hypothetical situation that you can be comfortable asking questions about a hypothetical. Find ways, research things. If you can't talk to people, other human beings, which is unfortunate, then certainly research it online, research your questions. All your questions have been asked by other people. There is nothing new on the face of the earth. The most unusual question you can possibly think of has probably already been asked by somebody somewhere in the world. So you can do a lot of online research. It is harder to do that type of research at libraries or through books. So try to find people that can actually answer questions for you, because there's something in the dynamic of human connection and human contact that we find strength in, or it just sparks that little tiny speck of strength that you have that is appropriate for that situation. I don't know if that makes sense, but it'll spark something within you, right? How many times have we encountered things, maybe when we were younger, that we found difficult, and someone just came along, sometimes randomly, that said something that sparked an idea, totally unrelated to what they said, that you could then use, and then that idea, that gem, suddenly starts having its own life and drama and sparkle to it, if you will. If you think of a gemstone, or if you think of it as inanimate, well, gemstones are inanimate, but if you think of other inanimate things, to take it out of the realm of human experience, you can take complex situations like that. If you only treat things linearly, you're probably not going to find the answers that you need. That's been my experience. So people who don't want to ask questions, people who are afraid to ask for help, get stuck. And the problem when we get stuck, which I hope is answering your question, Lisabeth, that when you get stuck, what happens is we kind of go into the weeds of our brain. If you think of weeds growing in there, we get stuck in the weeds, right? Or if you think of it more literally, you get stuck in the reeds of a river or a stream. How do you get yourself out of that? Well, of course, if you just start paddling faster and faster, probably you're just going to get more stuck. But that's that's what happens if you're thinking only linearly. And by that, I mean along a specific trajectory, a specific line of rationale. And if you don't start diagnosing what is actually preventing movement forward, then all you're doing is paddling faster and faster, and you're not going anywhere. All right. So, I guess part of it is you've got to find your inner strength. That's the bottom line. We all have inner strength. Why? Sometimes it's because we've got no choice, right? If you've got choices, great, go for it. Take those choices, see which ones work. And some of them will fail, but most of them will work, maybe not to the degree you want. Then that's a different question. That sparks the question of, okay, how do I accelerate this process? Different issue. But if you come back to, okay, being stuck in the weeds, that's where having other people in your environment, or even outside of your immediate environment, will give you ideas. If you don't trust them to give you ideas and up your game, or ways of just looking at things differently, try this experiment. Flip the issue that you've got over on its head completely. Flip it over. Look at it from the opposite side of it. Think of it as sort of a three-dimensional sphere, right? Rotate it, turn it over. Think about, how could I answer this from a different point of view? If you can't think of a point of view, that could be your hypothetical that you talk to other people about. But don't let yourself get stuck. If you're stuck in the weeds, you're not making any progress.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, okay, you could fail, but failure is a fear point. And what if you don't fail? What if you actually succeed? Most of the time we succeed. And even if we're thinking that we're going to fail, sometimes that failure has a way of moving us forward in a slightly different direction. And guess what? Now we've got the resources to move it forward into a different direction that does work for us. So it's not only about, the other part of it is that failure is not always linear either, right? So I hope that this resonates for people, because I found that to be extremely helpful. Another part of that fabric that you should consider weaving into that fabric of your life and your experiences that make you special is, who else are you mentoring along the way? Sometimes when you're talking to other people, they come up with a situation that you've had difficulty with before, and suddenly you're advising someone on an issue that you thought you were stuck on yourself. And you go, oh, wait a second. Actually, I have encountered something like that. This is what I did to get out of it. Maybe it's helpful to that person, maybe not. And they can take it or leave it. They can take it and build on it as well. But you have the benefit of hearing yourself. It's sort of that echo in your mind, right? Of, I've been down that road before, and this actually would help me in a different situation I'm facing today.
I love that you brought up the idea of having kind of a board of mentors. Let's talk for just a second, because unfortunately we're getting to the point where we're running out of time. But let's talk for just a second about, what is the role when you have a mentor?
Mm-hmm.
I know that one of the things that I always like to see is that the people who I have helped help others. And also come back and kind of tell me what happened, and with the mentoring situation, and if they were able to resolve some of their challenges that they had. What do you think makes for like that ideal mentor mentee protege relationship?
The idea for the relationship. Well, I think it really helps to know, if you're the mentor for another person, it helps to know where is that mentee stuck? Where is that person stuck? That's number one, because most likely you can help them fairly easily get beyond that stuck point. It's not always easy, but most of the time it isn't that hard. And then I think it's helpful to find out, does that person need you as a strategic mentor, or an operations type of mentor, or just for support, a supportive mentor, if you will? Someone that they can come and have coffee with once a week or once a month or once a quarter, or whatever it might be, whatever time frame works for the person. Because you don't ever want to give somebody so much information, it's crushing, they don't know what to do with it. And I have encountered that at times in the past, where I've got so much to share with the person, and they're very interested in what I have to share with them, but then they get mired in the weeds of their own processes and don't really actuate what we've talked about. And so I think that's really important.
Great. Well, Candace, we're getting to the end of the session here, and we always end with a very specific question. So, what what is the most valuable? What's the most important thing you've ever learned from a mentor?
Hmm. So a few different things. Can I say a few different things?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll allow it.
Okay. Thanks. So from my father, I learned financial planning is essential in life. It just is. So my dad used to meet me after college when I went to university. He would meet me at night and we'd go and have dinner, and he would teach me about how to plan. So he taught me about financial and other types of planning. My grandmother taught me about not trusting anybody in life. Maybe that's why I'm
Well,
insecure.
we're in the right fields then, aren't we?
Exactly. But I do have great friends. So I obviously do trust a lot of people, and I have great employees that I trust immensely. And so I guess it's more about how to trust people that's most important, you know. And then I had a boss one time who told me, who did reverse mentoring, I guess, who told me that they didn't think I had it in me, which was crushing to hear. But they meant it positively. It just came out. It was awful when it came out. So it was about doing sales, right? She didn't. She was a senior VP, and she didn't think that I had it in me to do sales. And actually, it spurred a tremendous relationship with her. She became a mentor to me. I think I became somewhat of a mentor to her in certain other areas later on. And I then launched into being able to do sales, technical sales, I call it, which is about selling within your technical sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So people buy from you based on what you can deliver technically. And so it would be that kind of sales. And so positive advice and difficult to hear advice. But I would say to people out there, take those pieces of wisdom that you can hear, that you can glean from other people, even if they feel terrible in the moment. I mean, I felt absolutely crushed at the time, but because of it, I had this tremendous mentoring relationship with someone who was a star performer and was a top multi-million-dollar sales advocate for this environmental engineering and civil engineering company. And so I learned tremendous things from that person. And most of all, I learned how to be extremely precise and never promise to do something you can't over deliver on.
That kind of real honest advice, we've gotten so far away from that level of honesty these days in everyday life, that having that, if you can take, and I can see how taking that, and when it comes and truly using it and growing yourself and motivating yourself through it, or finding the pieces that are valuable to you, that's great advice. Thank you,
Yeah.
Candace. We are out of time, unfortunately. Candace Tao, thank you so much for being here. We're really grateful, and I truly enjoyed this discussion, both on entrepreneurship and on mentoring, and how those two things come together. And we hope you'll come back and join us again.
Oh, thank you so much. I would love to.